Welcome back. The Federal Reserve's latest move coming less than 2 months before the presidential election. Now that is sparking sharp attacks from deficit hawk Republicans like Congressman Scott Garrett.
The New Jersey Republican calling the latest round of bond buying, quote, radical and unprecedented. He joins us now exclusively to make his case. Congressman Garrett is also vice chairman of the House Budget Committee. Sir, it's good to have you on the program.
It's good to be with you. Thank you so much.
Radical? I mean, that's a little bit strong, isn't it?
Well, radical, unprecedented, never done before. How about any of those adjectives? Others have already pointed out the fact that the actions of the Fed, in this case, are unprecedented. We have never seen the scope or the timelines or the tie-in with the labor market as the Fed has done in this situation. So whether you want to call any one of those adjectives, I think, is fitting and applies.
Yeah, but what do you say to, Congressman, what do you say to the fact that Ben Bernanke said that the economy needs this to continue to recover, that without it, we'll see recession?
Yeah, well, I think that's questionable whether, first of all, for some of his interpretations on this, and as part of your lead into this program I was listening to, it was saying that, is this the responsibility of the Fed in this situation, or is this the responsibility of Congress? And I would advocate in the fiscal policies that he seems to be really taking here, this falls into the confines of the area that the Congress should be looking at, and the Fed should be going backwards.
Well,
yes.
Well, maybe Mr. Bernanke wouldn't have to do anything with respect, sir, if you and your colleagues could actually do something on the fiscal cliff side.
Oh, absolutely,
I mean,
and I agree with you no end, and we would love to do some things on that side and a whole host of others. But
well, why aren't you doing anything about it?
Well, you well know that I'm standing here on the House side, but over there is the Senate side, and the Senate is where all good bills go to die. So whether it's a budget that hasn't been passed for 3.5 years,
no. But come on, I mean, you had Simpson Bowles, Paul Ryan voted against Simpson Bowles. Would you have voted for it or against it? Would you have voted against it?
I would have voted against Simpson Bowles. Why? Because Simpson Bowles did not take the breadth of all the issues that was out there. Paul is an expert on the area of entitlement reform and pointing the finger at where we really need to look at in order to bring our fiscal house in order. And Simpson Bowles really didn't want to get into all that. They wanted to look at some of the other tax sides of the equation. And so for the same reason that Paul,
Scott makes a good point, though. I mean, what is it going to take to get some unity so that you could actually make a decision and come together on this stuff? I mean, you've got the unemployment story worsening. You've got people's lives hanging in the balance. You guys go away for 5 weeks, right? You come back and no discussion on the fiscal cliff, and then you're pointing the finger at Ben Bernanke. I mean, give me a break. What are you going to do to actually move the needle in this economy? And what is it going to take?
Give you a break.
Right,
look at what the Fed has done in this situation. The Fed, on the floor last night, I was managing the vote for the sequester bill, and right next to me was Alan West, who was speaking in favor of our sequester bill, and he used this term, which I'm not familiar with, but I probably should be, and he says in the military, when something goes wrong, they conduct what is called a stand down. And basically what that means, he explained, is that they step back for a moment to say, look what we did and see whether we made some mistakes here before we advance further. I would suggest that the Fed probably should do its own stand down. They did QE1, they did QE2. We saw what the results were of that, not what they said it would be. They're so quick at pointing the finger at somebody else all the time to say that they're the only, as somebody else put it, the only hero in town. The Wall Street Journal, I think, said that. Maybe they should do a stand down for a second.
What about your stand down?
Analysis.
What about your stand down? Let me ask you this, Congressman. What are you willing to give on? Okay, how are you going to come together with your colleagues in the Senate to actually get something achieved so that you can move the needle on job creation? What are you willing to give on?
Well, let me give you an example of that, very specifically. Back when the Budget Control Act passed, we set up that so-called super committee, right? That super committee was charged with trying to address a lot of these issues on the spending side of the equation. The Republicans are asked, when are you ever going to get off the mark on tax increases, on raising taxes, if the Democrats would get off the mark on the entitlement reform? And do you remember what happened there? I'm sure you do. Republicans on that committee said, okay, we will put that issue aside. We will agree to raising taxes, actually. The members of the committee said that. If the other side of the aisle, the Democrats, would actually come to the table with a plan. Well, here we are in September. That was back 11 months ago. The Democrats to this day have not come to that table or any table with a plan. So
well,
whether
it makes no sense. We all know. I mean, the average American at this point knows that we cannot afford the promises that we've made in terms of de-spending.
Well, the average American may know that, but what you need to do next is interview Senate President Harry Reid, because he obviously doesn't know that. He has said on the floor publicly that we don't need to look at these entitlement programs today. He says that spending is fine. Basically, what he says, we can look at these issues when, not today, but 20 years from now. So you're right. The average American knows we have a problem. The Senate President doesn't recognize that. Members of the House Democrat caucus don't realize that. So maybe we need the average American to start talking to some of these people in the Senate.
Congressman, you think we'll see a recession in 2013?
I'm not good at defining the future. Otherwise, I would be making more money in the market, I guess. But I would say that we can avoid that if we have success in about 50 days from now on November 6th. If we get Romney and my friend Paul Ryan over as VP, we can then turn things around in this country in a more positive sense.
All right, Congressman. Good to have you on the program. Thanks very much for joining us.